Liz Dora, let's talk about The Voice and the Voice referendum, their campaign, the Yes campaign. They're using the John Farnham song, The Voice, as we know. I played it so many times with the program last night.
Don't bag Farnsy. If anyone bags Farnsy, I go.
Oh, we're in for a punch-up then, Paul.
Don't have a crack at him.
Please, can he not read a poll? I just can't believe he did this. He's an Aussie icon.
Sorry, Sharri, if you'd like to host your own show.
This is his most famous anthem, and he's lent it to a cause that the vast majority of Aussies have already said we're not down with it.
Yeah. But look, the point is, they came out and said, we've never licensed this song to anyone else, making it sound like it was such a special thing, never been used. It's been used for Ford, Cadbury's chocolate, telecom. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And fine, it's not his licensed version, but it's their same song, Paul.
I love the song, but it's one of those ones that if you actually pay attention to every single word, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But a lot of great Australian songs don't, because they're sung best late at night or at weddings and all the rest of it. The idea that people are still singing about Kaysana these day and age at a wedding. Look, I am a Farnsy crazy fan, right?
Okay.
Like, I've been to the biggest concerts, the smallest concerts. I've seen him performing in a tent in Townsville and a stadium in Sydney, right? I love the guy. So I'm just going to completely look the other way about the politics of it. It's not a surprise that this song was going to get matched at some point to this campaign.
Not really, though, because Paul Kelly came out just on Friday and said,
Farnsy
I've
beats
written
Kelly
a
any
song.
day.
Sure, it does, but the fact that that was totally disregarded and this guy had literally written a song, obviously in the hopes of being the Yes campaign's anthem, they completely ignored it.
I just love...
You want to be able to understand that fans of his...
I get it.
Given the majority of Australians, 53% according to yesterday's news poll, don't support The Voice, and so they've taken this iconic song and put it towards something that is dividing the country.
Well, what's particularly interesting about the choice of the song is the single biggest demographic in Don't Know is 50 to 64. Now, the song, obviously, is evocative of 1987 when people would have bought this particular album. What I find most interesting about it, rather than the political attributes of the artist, again, I'm giving him a pass. Sorry, Australia. Sometimes I've got a blind spot and John Farnham's going to be it for me, right? The man was just announced as cancer-free a couple of weeks ago. Give him a break. But I get why you're pissed about it. But it's really interesting about the total amount of messaging that is about a slightly older demographic than the actual group that this thing was always supposed to slam dunk.
The younger generation are already voting yes. That's what the polls show in any case.
Yes.
Funny you say that. In news poll yesterday...
Let's bring in Liz, though, as well.
Sorry, Liz. After you.
Yeah, that is the case. But I think it also opens up a very interesting question about, does this work when we get famous people on board to support political causes? We see a lot of this in the States, vote Democrat because Beyonce said so. We saw a lot of it over the last 3 years during the pandemic. Ida Buttrose, other really well-known Australians being like, get your third jab, get your fourth. Whatever the case may be, I just don't think it works so much anymore. This is entirely an emotional pull. Let's get Farnsy on board. Let's use this Aussie anthem. And I think, especially after the last 3 years, Aussies are exhausted. They're sick of being called upon emotionally.
Do you think it depends on the celebrity? Like when Kate Blanchett did that interview with the ABC and she's encouraging people to vote for The Voice, people would have just gone, please don't tell me what to do.
Do me a favour.
But if it's Farnsy, maybe it would work.
One of the joys of a certain era of performer that people like myself enjoyed was that you didn't know their politics, right? You made some rough assumptions about who they were, but you didn't know their politics. Whether John Farnham makes the decision exclusively, whether it's management, whether it's his kids with it, I don't know, whatever, decision made. But what was really interesting out of an essential poll today in the Turnbull Times, Guardian, which is the number one source of information for Australians about The Voice, family and friends. So paid advertising is actually the least trustworthy form of it and the least
So we don't have to worry about their $100 million war checks.
Well, because, actually, it's... remember, in the same way that... So, my partner spent, whatever, tens of millions of dollars and only got one seat. So sometimes... And also, this is another thing that I'm trying to sort of tease out to explain to people. The electorate hasn't completely flipped from where it was 18 months ago, where it's now suddenly sort of, deep, hardcore conservative. People are able to bounce around. So you get places like Queensland that will vote for the LNP at a federal level, but then vote Labor at a state election.
Yeah.
People will reject this referendum, but that doesn't automatically mean a rejection of the Prime Minister. Cost of living, that's another issue around this. But also, there are certain issues when people have already made their mind up, and this goes back to, if this thing falls over, one person only to blame, and while it'll be everyone saying it's Peter Dutton, it's Anthony Albanese. He took too long. Because remember, this started off at 60-40. You wanted to get a vote as soon as possible at 60-40.
If he would have held it then, it would have been a different outcome to now.